This session is going to pick up right where we left off after importing data. So you should already have the airports document in R, and we're going to be using the basics file that has been used in a couple other videos. Scroll all the way down to around line 122 or so, and we'll just pick up right there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install a package which is going to help us sort and filter the airport's data, which is the goal of this video. So just install.packages is a function which tells R to go online and look for a package known as tidyverse. So I'm going to run it, and then it'll start showing me all this red text, which is kind of scary, but it's supposed to happen, so it's fine. And then after a while, it will install it. But not all installed packages are loaded into every session, so you have to do that manually as well, and that's what this library function does, library tidyverse, so run that as well. What the library function does is it makes each package active in any given session. Sometimes you don't want all your packages simultaneously active, and part of the reason for that is that you can see right here that there is a conflict. So in base R, the filter function, for example, down here, the filter function used to mean one thing, but now that we installed this package, it means something else in the dplyr part, which is part of the tidyverse. The tidyverse is actually several packages bundled together. So this dplyr function filter now masks the old filter. So filter means something different. So you only want some packages loaded into any given session. So now let's take a little bit of a look at the airports object. So I'm just going to run airports, and you can see what it will look like in R. It's not as nice as if you actually just click over here and open it up in the tab, where it kind of looks more like an Excel spreadsheet. But still, you can see down here in the console that it basically has the same structure. So we're going to ask, well, what class is this? If you remember in our earlier video, we were looking at class, and it was choosing things like integer or character. Well, for this one, it's going to say that it is a data frame. And what a data frame is basically like a worksheet, or like an Excel worksheet, basically. It's a matrix. It's rows and columns that have names, and then, they're put into a big box. Next, we're going to ask how many rows there are. And you can see that there are 1458 rows. 1458, you can also notice, is the same number up here. And what that means is it's telling you how many observations there are, how many points of data, essentially, how many collections. For us, that translates to how many airports are in here, how many listed airports are in this data set. And then the end call tells you the number of columns. You can see these functions are just really simple. You just ask the function, and then you put parentheses, and then you put the data frame there. Number of columns is 8, and that tells us how many variables there are. There are 8 variables. Finally, we're going to ask what the row names are of the airports. The row names were actually just assigned by R, and they are just 1 through 1000, so the row names just are a series of numbers. And then we're also going to ask how many call names there are. Call names, as you could probably guess, is the number of column names. And so you can see here that these are what all the columns are titled. You could change it if you want to, but let's not do that for right now. Next, we're going to sort of sort through this data set. So if you look over in T-zone, in time zone, you can see there's all these different time zones. There's America, New York, America, Denver, America, Chicago, America, Los Angeles, and it goes on. Now, what if we only want to look at some of those airports? What if we're sorting through this and we say, well, we actually don't care about ones that are to the west. We only actually want to know the ones that are in the New York time zone. So you can use the filter function, which is part of the tidyverse. Now, how filter works is you call filter, and then you put the data set that you want to use, so airports, separate it by a comma, and then you can put a logical argument in there. For us, we're going to do time zone is equal to America, New York. So there's a lot to unpack there. First off, notice that there are two equal signs. In R, if you have one equal sign, it thinks it's something else. You have to have two equal signs to mean is. I'm going to run this. And you can see that it is pulling up just America, New York things. The second thing I said was that this was a logical argument. What a logical argument means is that there's basically two answers to the outcome, so true or false. And you can see with time zone that time zone is America, New York. It's going to break up every data piece into two columns or two bins, basically. Whether the time zone is equal to America, New York, which would be the true, and whether it is not equal, which is the false. So it's going to discard all the false ones, get rid of all of those, and just leave you with the ones where America/New York is true. Also notice that I had to put that in quotations. That just tells R that you're looking for this bit of text and not like an object or something like that. So we can see what filter does by calling help on it, which is $filter. And then over in your right side, it will bring up actually both of the filter function. If you remember back there, it said there was a package in stats that was filter, and then the new one we installed in dplyr. So we actually want to investigate the dplyr package. So click on that top one, and then you can see that the filter function is used to choose rows or cases where conditions are true. And then this usage tells you how to actually structure your argument. So this says put the data first, so put your data frame there, and then it has ... and then preserve equals false. So the ... it corresponds to down here, and it says it's a logical predicate determined in terms of variables in the data. So then it goes on to say only rows where the condition evaluates to true are kept. So for us, it's only going to keep the ones where time zone equals New York is true. So if a row comes up as true when R scans that, then it will bring back America/New York. And then finally, we're going to store this result into an object of its own. Because R won't store it by itself just by running it. We want to actually make sure that it stores the filtered objects as something else. So I'm just going to write ET airports, Eastern Time airports. There you go. You can see that the Eastern Time airports has filtered out a lot of the variables or the observations, and that the original airports object has remained the same even though we were doing a filter on it. And that's because we didn't store the result. So that's a little bit about the filter function and starting us off. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks.